There's a small village in northern Kazakhstan where, for a couple of years, people just started falling asleep without any warning, sometimes right in the middle of the street, mid-conversation, and they'd wake up hours or even days later with no memory of what happened. This is the sleeping sickness of Kalachi. Nobody could explain it for a long time. Doctors couldn't, scientists couldn't. Even the government struggled to figure it out. It took years, a lot of dead ends, and, believe it or not, one very confused house cat before anyone got close to an answer. Quick thing before we dive in. If you're new here, this channel is basically dedicated to weird medical true stories like this one, so if that's your thing, subscribe. And if you're already following along, a like on this video genuinely helps more than you'd think. Okay, so, Kalachi. It's a small dusty village out on the Kazakh steppe. Right next door is an even smaller village called Krasnogorsk. Combined, we're talking about maybe 800 people, mostly ethnic, Russians and Germans, alongside ethnic Kazakhs whose families had been out there for generations. Nothing about this place stands out. It's remote. It's quiet. Most of the world had never heard of it. That changed in March of 2013. People in the village started collapsing into these sudden deep sleeps. Someone would be walking down the road and just go down right there. Kids started passing out at their school desks in the middle of class. And when people woke back up, they didn't remember any of it. Just bad headaches and a heaviness in their limbs that stuck around for a while after. For some of these people, it wasn't a one-time thing either. Certain villagers went through this 8 separate times. And some of those sleep episodes lasted for a few days. A nurse in the village described it pretty simply to a news crew at one point. You could wake these people up, she said, and they'd talk to you. They'd answer you. They seemed present enough. But the moment the conversation stopped, they'd just drift right back under. All they wanted was to keep sleeping. It got weirder though. A handful of kids who went through this described some pretty disturbing hallucinations like winged horses, snakes curled up in their beds, worms crawling under their skin while they were sleeping. Other people described this sensation like a snail slowly crossing their face. And here's the part that made a lot of people take this seriously. It wasn't only happening to humans. A Kalachi woman named Yelena Zhavoronkova told a local paper about her cat Marcus one Friday night. The cat basically snapped out of nowhere, yowling, clawing at the walls, attacking furniture, even going after the family dog. Then sometime before sunrise, he just crashed, fell asleep, started snoring like a person, and didn't wake back up until lunchtime. The next day, he wouldn't even touch his food. So now doctors have dozens of people, and apparently a cat, all falling into these sudden unexplained comas in a village where the total population barely cracks 1,000. The first theory was almost too simple: bad vodka. Counterfeit alcohol is a genuine problem in that part of the world, so doctors figured maybe there was a contaminated batch going around. That theory didn't survive long once kids who obviously weren't drinking anything started showing the same symptoms. Eventually, doctors landed on a label that basically meant admitting defeat, encephalopathy of unknown origin, which just means something's wrong with these people's brains and nobody knows what's causing it. The obvious suspect to a lot of residents was sitting right next to the village. There's a cluster of old Soviet-era uranium mines out there, shut down since the fall of the USSR. Krasnogorsk had basically turned into a ghost town because of it. A village that once had around 6,500 people was down to roughly 130. So radiation seemed like the obvious answer. Kazakhstan's health ministry went and tested more than 7,000 homes, and the results were kind of a letdown. No dangerously high radiation, no dangerous levels of heavy metals. A few homes did show slightly elevated radium, but not nearly enough to explain what was happening across an entire village. With radiation basically ruled out, sleep specialists were brought in next, and they didn't have much luck either. One somnologist eventually suggested something totally different, that this might not be physical at all, that it could be a kind of mass psychological phenomenon spreading through a small, isolated, tight community. The same way certain unexplained illnesses have spread through other populations gripped by shared anxiety. Except, that explanation runs into the same problem as everything else. It doesn't really explain the cat. The whole thing dragged on for years. Cases would show up then, quiet down for a while, then come roaring back. In 2015, it hit people of every age. Eventually, the government stepped in, properly running full medical exams on every single resident of both villages. And this time, they landed on something that actually stuck. According to the country's deputy prime minister, the answer had been sitting under the village the whole time. Those old flooded uranium mines were apparently releasing pockets of carbon monoxide and other hydrocarbon gases into the air, which meant less oxygen for people to breathe day to day. And that lines up pretty well with sudden extreme sleepiness, confusion and memory loss. Not everybody bought it completely though, A separate group of researchers out of Nazarbayev University in Astana interviewed villagers directly and came away with a different idea: that the local groundwater might have been contaminated, possibly by old military chemicals that had leaked out of barrels left behind somewhere in the area. Nobody ever nailed down exactly what those chemicals were. It stayed more of a theory than a confirmed cause. Either way, officials didn't wait around for a final answer. They started evacuating both villages, moving dozens of families out of Kalachi and Krasnogorsk for good. So somewhere out on the Kazakh steppe right now, there are homes sitting empty in two villages, where for a couple of years entire families and their pets kept falling asleep and nobody could tell them why.